In a past life, a single mistake in the wedding palanquin sent me plunging into the abyss to my death. Yet my cousin Yi Jiqing, wearing my face, rode in my palanquin to marry the crown prince. Only after becoming a lonely spirit did I learn she was the daughter born to my father's concubine. After my death, she accepted everything that belonged to me without a shred of guilt. The crown prince, who vowed to grow old with me, embraced her. You've suffered enough. From now on, you shall live as her. To welcome her concubine mother into the household. My own mother was poisoned to death by her. My maternal family sacrificed everything for her, only to be falsely accused of treason and brutally executed at the frontier. Heaven took pity. The moment I opened my eyes, I saw Yi Jiqing once more. Her cheeks flushed slightly. Wan. I hear His Highness the Crown Prince will petition the Emperor for your marriage tomorrow. I'm truly happy for you. Wan. The woman's voice was so familiar it made my heart tremble. As if I'd endured countless lifetimes. I suddenly snapped awake. Looking down, I saw my own arm held tightly, a pair of slender, pale hands. Following the wrist upward, the woman before me wore a soft purple silk robe embroidered with vibrant jade-colored lotus flowers at the cuffs. Her face was delicate and lovely, her smile charming and graceful. Years of fear made me stumble back. Instinctively, I brushed her hand away and turned, gripping the table edge with trembling hands. What was happening? All these years, I had been bound to that jade bracelet. How could she see me, let alone touch me? I had to find a way. I couldn't die silently again. Yi Jiqing now held the exalted position of empress. Alone and defenseless, she could eliminate me with the ease of turning her hand. The woman behind me drew near softly, her voice gentle with concern. Wan. What's wrong? You're sweating profusely. Are you feeling unwell? No. My alertness sharpened as I lifted my eyes, scanning the surroundings. What did you just say? I stared straight at Yi Jiqing before me, startled by my gaze. She took a slight step back, biting her lip as she replied. I heard His Royal Highness the Crown Prince will petition for a royal marriage decree tomorrow. It wasn't my soul reigniting, I had returned to this very day. My thoughts churned endlessly. Then suddenly, clarity dawned. I lowered my head, the bitterness in my heart coalescing into a torrent of hatred. You're happy for me? I fought back the tears threatening to spill over as I asked. Of course. We grew up together, as close as sisters. I'm genuinely happy for you to marry a good man. Besides, you and the Crown Prince are deeply in love. Wan. You'll be the luckiest woman in the world. Her eyes crinkled in a genuine smile, her expression utterly sincere, as if she truly rejoiced for me. But I knew. She, the Crown Prince, and my father would deliberately send the wrong wedding palanquin on the day of the marriage. In my past life, I never imagined this frail woman who shared my days and nights could harbor such a vicious heart. Right now, she must be mocking my naivety, foolishness, and ignorance, how I'd been deceived by them for decades. With hands icy cold, I clasped hers. When she tried to pull away, I gripped her tightly. Happy, is it? I smiled faintly, my voice calm. Cousin, I shall make you even happier. With that, I brushed her hand away as though discarding filth. Yi Jiqing was no fool. She probed cautiously. Wan, you seem different today. Of course I was different. If this were my past life, how much I had adored her then. When I was 7, Father brought home a little girl from Jiangnan, saying she was our cousin who would play with Wan from now on. After giving birth to me, Mother's health declined, and I remained the only child in the entire household. Suddenly seeing a girl my own age filled me with immense joy. From then on, for every hairpin I had, she had a hairpin too. My mother, kind-hearted, pitied the girl's loneliness and helplessness. For a long time, she personally supervised the servants, forbidding them to show any disrespect to this cousin sister, insisting they treat us equally. From then on, the Ming household had 2 young ladies. We wore identical brocades and silks, ate the same delicacies, and adorned ourselves with matching gold and jewels. But what did all this bring? It brought my father, Ming Qingyin, consorting with his mistress for over a decade, scheming and plotting to eliminate his lawful wife and daughter to make way for his own family of 4. It brought my body scattered beneath a cliff. It brought my mother drinking the poison brewed by her own daughter day after day, dying with blood streaming from her 7 orifices. It was my maternal family, who died never understanding why the beloved granddaughter they cherished their entire lives would force them to bury her body in the desert, leaving their lineage extinct. If I can relive this once more, I will flay and dismember them one by one, even if I must sacrifice myself to the heavens. What have I to fear? I myself did not know the crown prince would petition for a royal marriage decree tomorrow. How did you hear of this? Could it be you and the crown prince have been secretly colluding? It's more than collusion. I fear they've long since formed an alliance behind my back. In my past life, when I heard her say this, I was consumed by joy and never delved deeper. I fixed my gaze upon her eyes, refusing to let her retreat even an inch. Yi Jiqing froze for a moment before shaking her head. Wan, how could you suspect me like this? He is His Highness the Crown Prince. I merely heard his attendant mention it casually yesterday when delivering something. Gazing at her fair, delicate face, I sneered inwardly. Absurd. How naive I must have been to trust her so completely, allowing her such confidence that she could casually offer such a flimsy excuse to placate me. The Mingxi of my past life would have believed it. Raised in love, she never doubted her devoted father or her gentle, kind cousin. Just then, several maids entered, carrying trays. My personal maid, Bihe, glanced at Yi Jiqing before hurrying to my side. Miss. Cousin Miss. This is the whitening powder ordered months ago. Unfortunately, coastal yields were scarce this year, so only this amount arrived. Since you never use such things, I had the remainder sent to Cousin Miss's quarters. Whitening powder was a substance meant to make a woman's skin fairer. Seeing it brought all the overlooked details flooding back. I vaguely recalled Yi Jiqing's complexion being sallow when she first entered the estate. Yet I inherited my mother's fair skin. It seemed she had gradually transformed into her present appearance over the years through such products. I turned to my personal maid and kicked her knee, since when do the maids in this estate get to dictate to their mistresses? Bihe. How foolish of me to rescue you from that cannibal's den. How foolish of me to treat you so kindly. You conspired with Yi Jiqing behind my back, when you ordered the palanquin bearers to push our wedding litter off the cliff in my past life. Did you ever imagine I would climb back up? She clung to the ground, gripping my skirt hem desperately. Miss. I didn't mean it that way. I was wrong. I glanced at Yi Jiqing. As expected, she crouched down, her face filled with pity as she looked at Bihe. Wan. Bihe is your trusted servant. Even if she erred, you could have spoken to her calmly. I chuckled softly, crushing the box of jiaobai powder under my toe. Yi Jiqing's gaze fixed on my foot, her body swaying. What I discarded like an old shoe was her lifeline. Is that so? Since you cherish Bihe so much, I'll simply give her to you. She snapped her head up, protesting. I didn't. Oh, right. Remember to have your maid Bihe return the jiaobai powder I sent to your quarters today. I have other uses for it. Bihe grabbed my ankle, pleading desperately. Miss, please don't cast me aside. I won't dare do it again. I lifted my chin toward a maid standing nearby. You. Come here. She looked up, her eyes uncertain. timidly pointing at herself. Me? I remembered her. In the moment before she fell off the cliff. She saw my face. Later, when no one was watching, she hid, intending to wait for an opportunity to return to the Ming residence and inform my mother. But she was discovered by the people Yi Jiqing sent to find my body and died under a hail of blades. I asked, "What is your name?" The little maid was timid, not really suited to be a senior maid, but it didn't matter. I would make her into a competent one. This servant is called Mei Xiang. I offered her a genuine smile, patting her head. From now on, you'll stay by my side. Overwhelmed by the honor, her cheeks flushed and her lips trembled. Thank you, miss. I will serve you faithfully. Take your time. Father, the crown prince, Yi Jiqing. In this life, I will settle every single blood debt with you. Stepping out of the courtyard, I turned to Mei Xiang. Go find a skilled physician outside and bring him to my mother's quarters. Remember, do not alert anyone. This is your first task. From now on, whatever I instruct you to do, you will do it. Do not ask questions you should not ask. Understand? After speaking, I studied her expression. She merely looked startled before nodding in agreement. Watching her hurry away, I summoned another man and ordered him to keep an eye on Yi Jiqing. Today's events must have caught her completely off guard. She'll surely leave the estate to consult her concubine mother about her next move. I squinted against the sun. That woman truly had the face of a goddess but the heart of a viper. To climb into the position of principal wife. She'd not only endured decades of servitude without status or recognition, but also orchestrated vicious schemes from behind the scenes. My mother, the sole legitimate daughter of the Duke of Ying, never needed to fight or compete, nor did she deign to. Thus, even if she faced that concubine head-on, she would likely suffer defeat at every turn. But during my years as a ghost, what filthy secrets hadn't I witnessed? These hands of mine won't hesitate to become my mother's blade, cutting down every worthless obstacle in her path. Walking through the covered corridor, the familiar scenery surrounds me. The crabapple blossoms fill the courtyard, blooming in the spring light as if welcoming my return. Before my eyes, the scenery shifted with each step, while my thoughts rewound frame by frame through my past life. In that life, the world believed only the cousin staying at the Ming residence had fallen to her death from the cliff, and they sighed in pity for her. Yet no one knew that within the flower-adorned palanquin below the cliff sat the Ming residence's true legitimate daughter, a truth no one would ever uncover. 10 years of daily disguise. 10 years of daily scheming and lying low. They wanted me dead and dismembered. I still remember how, after my death, my soul somehow attached itself to Yi Jiqing's jade bracelet. That bracelet was my personal possession, obtained by my mother after 49 days of kneeling prayers at Fahua Temple, said to protect me from harm. As my corpse lay battered beneath the cliff by storm and rain, Yi Jiqing had completely taken my form. She lay coyly in Crown Prince Xiao Jingming's embrace. Only then did I realize souls could feel pain. Gritting my teeth against the searing agony, I wept and desperately tried to warn Xiao Jingming, brother Crown Prince. She is not me. Do not trust her. Of course. He couldn't hear me, and I never blamed him. But the words he spoke sent a chill through my disembodied soul. In the flickering light of red candles, his features still held that dashing charm as he casually remarked, "I'm sorry for the inconvenience. From now on, you must live as Mingxi." Yi Jiqing's cheeks flushed crimson as she murmured softly, "As long as I can be with you, this slight hardship means nothing." What I had believed to be childhood sweethearts, mutual affection, was merely sewing a wedding gown for another. After the incident that day, they demanded to see me alive or dead. They were the first to find my corpse. Yet later, to eliminate all traces, they spared not even my remains. A raging inferno scorched my soul, condemning me to eternal torment even in death. My ashes were mixed into mud and poured onto the path leading from the eastern palace to the central palace. Thus, the two of them climbed upward, trampling my ashes beneath their feet. Back then, I couldn't fathom when exactly he had begun to harbor feelings for Yi Jiqing. Only later, after spending much time by Yi Jiqing's side, did I learn that the young Yi Jiqing had once accidentally saved Crown Prince Xiao Jingming. When they reminisced about their first encounter in the night, my soul, imprisoned within the jade bracelet, couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. Xiao Jingming, if you knew that the one who saved you 9 years ago wasn't the woman before you, but Mingxi, whom you conspired to kill, what would you feel? But I didn't care. Even if I had truly loved him back then, if he told me he wanted Yi Jiqing, I would have let her go willingly. Why? Why such cruelty? Only later did I understand. The Crown Prince desired both Yi Jiqing and the British Duke's estate behind me. Mother? Mother! I called out impatiently before even entering the courtyard. The matron in Mother's courtyard had been airing quilts all morning. Spotting me, she beamed with affection. Young miss has arrived? Have you had breakfast? What would you like today? I'll have the kitchen prepare it for you. Woo ma. Ma. I pressed my head against her shoulder, rubbing it like a child, my nose stinging with tears. Auntie Wu was an elder brought from the Duke of Ying's estate by my mother. In my past life, she had been by my mother's side until the very end. She chuckled happily. Oh my dear miss. I know exactly what you want, apricot blossom soup. Right? I do. Where's Mother? I released her arm and stepped further inside. Past the second door. I couldn't help but call out again. Then, a voice drifted from within the room. Gentle and clear, Mother's here. Here. The moment I heard that voice, the bitterness accumulated over 2 lifetimes surged from my heart and spilled forth from my eyes. The woman who emerged wore no ornate hairpins or jeweled crown. Her hair simply gathered in a high bun. She was dressed in a plain, pale purple, front-fastening gown, her willow leaf brows delicate, her face as radiant as a lotus flower. I stood transfixed, watching her approach. The face before me stood in stark contrast to the emaciated, poisoned form I remembered from my past life, collapsed weakly by the bedside. My mother, she should have always been this radiant and dazzling. Before I knew it, my face was wet with tears. Startled, Mother reached for a handkerchief, her voice filled with heartache. What's wrong? Who upset you? Why are you crying like this? Tell Mother. Please. Don't cry. I threw myself into her arms, clinging tightly to her waist as my sobs grew louder and louder. Impossible to stop. I had a nightmare. Mother. I missed you so much. A hand gently patted my back. What little ghost dares to haunt my sheer? Mother will go to Fahua Temple another day to pray for a talisman of peace for you. When I was sick as a child, she kept vigil day and night, never letting anyone else tend to me. For 15 years, she held me in the palm of her hand. In her final moments before death in a past life, Yi Jiqing stood by her bedside, revealing the truth in hushed tones. Madam Ming, you likely never imagined your daughter died 5 years ago. You personally escorted her into that wedding sedan chair, unaware it led straight to a dead end. Oh, you speak of me? I am your most cherished Qinger. How is it, despite your profound affection, you fail to recognize me? But all this is your own doing. Had you not clung to my father, would my mother have endured years of gossip and scorn? This is what you owe us. By then, my mother could no longer speak. Tears streamed from her eyes as she struggled to choke out a few words. She. Snapping back to reality, I glanced at the bowl of murky liquid on the table and asked, "What is this? Not crying anymore?" Mother turned to look at me, her tone matter of fact. "This is the restorative medicine Qinger brewed for me." She's thoughtful, she personally prepares my medicine every single day. My expression hardened. I reached out and poured the contents of the bowl into a nearby flower pot, leaving only a few residue behind. Then, trying to keep my voice steady, I said, "Mother, all medicine has its side effects. You can't just take it indiscriminately. Didn't you say you had a headache the other day? I specifically had a doctor come to examine you. If you need medicine, you should consult the doctor first." She paused, then nodded. "I'll listen to you. I don't need to drink it. Mother's body isn't really troubled by anything." At this point, Yi Jiqing naturally dared not tamper with the medicine. In my previous life, though she had completely replaced me in appearance, no one could perfectly play the role of her own daughter under the watchful eye of a mother. Yi Jiqing clearly understood this too. That's why, after marrying into the crown prince's household, she wouldn't visit my mother even once for half a year. Sometimes, when my mother missed her terribly, she'd drive to the crown prince's residence to seek an audience, but she'd be told the crown princess was unwell and couldn't receive visitors. At such times, my mother would sit in her room for hours, gazing silently at the flickering candlelight. She would ask my father, "Why do I feel as though Sheer has become a different person? She doesn't seem close to me anymore." He would offer platitudes in response. "Sheer is now the crown princess. Her every word and action represents the imperial family's dignity. Naturally, she won't be as close to us now. This is a good thing, it shows she's matured. You shouldn't worry too much." Yi Jiqing dared not see her. Yet bowl after bowl of poison was never missed. My mother was pleased her daughter understood and cared for her health. But the medicine grew increasingly bitter. Once, she couldn't help but ask, "Mother, your health is fine. Perhaps we should stop this medicine? It's truly too bitter." Yi Jiqing stood far away, a smile playing on her lips. "Mother, bitter medicine is good for the illness. Don't you trust your daughter?" At that moment, I drifted behind her, my ethereal soul passing through her body again and again. "Mother, don't drink it. Don't drink it. I beg you. Don't drink it." No one heard my cries. My gentle, kind mother drank bowl after bowl of the deadly concoction her own daughter had painstakingly prepared for her, all with a look of joy on her face. Back then, I was consumed by hate for being an avenging ghost who died unjustly, unable to take human form and seek revenge. Just then, Mei Xiang's voice sounded outside the door, tinged with tension and unease. "Miss. The doctor. The doctor is here." The physician summoned from the southern city gate bore the surname Mo. His hair was streaked with gray, and his back was slightly stooped. After taking her pulse through the curtain, Dr. Mo bowed respectfully and said, "Madam's pulse shows a peaceful rhythm. There is only a slight deficiency in her qi and blood. With proper nourishment, she will be fine." I exhaled heavily, squeezed my mother's hand, and addressed him, "Doctor, please prescribe a few doses of medicine for my mother." After the physician departed, my mother smiled as she dabbed the sweat from my forehead with a handkerchief. "Look at you, child. What could possibly be wrong with your mother? There's no need to worry. Our family physician checks on me daily." The moment she finished speaking, my brows furrowed. What followed would be a thorough review of the family physician we kept on retainer. I gazed into her eyes, silent for a long while. Then, as if casually, I asked, "Mother, don't you think I bear a slight resemblance to Yi Jiqing?" Her expression froze for a moment before she began to ponder deeply. That was typical of my mother. From childhood onward, no matter how strange or peculiar my questions, she never dismissed them as nonsense. She always gave them serious thought. After a while, she smiled. "Now that you mention it, there is a resemblance. But she is your father's niece. And since you two grew up together, Perhaps the closeness has made you look more alike. What's the matter? Why ask that suddenly? I lifted the corner of my mouth and shook my head. Nothing. Just then, a maid's voice came from outside the door. Madam. Miss. The master has returned home. I turned to look at Mother and saw joy flicker in her eyes. My fingers curled unconsciously on my lap. Mother. You love him so deeply. If you ever learned of his true deeds, would you regret marrying him even at the cost of severing ties with your own family? Back then, he was but a poor scholar from the south. Gentle and refined, he captivated my mother at first sight during the poetry gathering. Later came the noble lady's marriage to the scholar. His meteoric rise, a tale that became the talk of the town. I'd heard countless times of their deep, devoted love, and each time, I'd been moved to tears. But now, all that remains is a wellspring of resentment and bitterness. Resentment that he deceived my mother for so many years. Hatred that he never once cared for either of us. By the time we reached the front hall, Yi Jiqing was already waiting. The man beside her was none other than my father. Ming Qingyin. My gaze darted between their faces. How laughable, in the unobserved corners. They bore such striking resemblance. The phrase "the nephew resembles his uncle" silenced the hundreds of eyes throughout the Ming residence. Why such a look for your father? Even in middle age. Ming Qingyin retained his elegant bearing, the very charisma that had once caused the streets to be flooded with incense fruit carts during his procession as the third-place scholar in the imperial examinations. In my past life, when Yi Jiqing murdered my mother, he stood outside the door. Inside, my mother's blood-curdling wails echoed outside. His cold, indifferent figure remained. My Ming Qingyin, you betrayed me. If there is a next life, I will not marry you. Father, your daughter was wrong. I drifted outside, seeking his last shred of mercy, only to see the veins on his forehead bulge. The next moment, he swept his sleeves and left. When the heart dies, it's like a lamp extinguished. I will never again harbor any filial affection for him. Long ago, I already considered my father dead. Facing this face before me, I couldn't muster even a hint of a smile. Yet before the mask slipped, I forced a smile and casually remarked, "Father, what is this fragrance on you?" I recall Mother's incense hasn't changed. Seeing his expression shift, I feigned innocence. This rouge scent on you is truly unpleasant. Which uncle brought it from home and it clung to you? He hurriedly explained to Mother, perhaps it was accidentally picked up while drinking with colleagues earlier. I snorted inwardly. His mistress loved planting peach and crabapple trees in her courtyard. Every time he returned from there, he'd be coated in that foul, cloying scent. I glanced at Mother. Had she truly never noticed? Yi Jiqing spoke up then, sounding quite sensible. Who doesn't know that uncle's heart belongs only to auntie? How could he? Wan. Saying such things is rather unkind. I propped my hands on the armrest, smiling at her. Oh, Father, I never said you were being unfaithful. But hearing Cousin Yi speak, I almost thought you were keeping someone on the side. Nonsense. Wan. What rubbish are you spouting? The first sentence was Ming Qingyin scolding Yi Jiqing. The second was my mother scolding me. The next day, before heading to the palace banquet, I glanced at the maids peeking out and curved my lips. I told Mei Xiong, wear that deep purple one today. Sure enough, when I reached the doorway, I saw Yi Jiqing wearing a robe of radiant purple. Her eyes met mine, and she clenched her fists. Her voice strained as she asked, Wan, why are you dressed so plainly today? Is today plain? I lifted my sleeve and waved it. I'm naturally inclined to simplicity. I can't match Cousin Ye's vibrant elegance. Purple garments are demanding, most cannot carry off the noble aura of the color. Yi Jiqing was clever. She wanted to mirror my style but refused to wear the deep crimson she couldn't pull off. So she settled for the lighter, shimmering purple instead. I never understood why. At every banquet, our attire always coincidentally matched. Yi Jiqing once used this as proof of our deep sisterly bond and shared hearts. Now I realize every step was meticulously calculated. I lifted the carriage curtain, gazing at the bustling, vibrant scene outside. A faint smile tugged at my lips. Few knew that the imperial consort, so favored by the emperor, could not bear to see anyone else wearing purple. The thought of the difficult battle ahead with the crown prince today made me unwilling to spare any thought for Yi Jiqing. My knuckles tapped lightly against the carriage wall. Once. Twice. Xiao Jingming, you wish to betroth me and marry me. Alas, I no longer desire it. This palace banquet was held in the main hall, with seating arranged by rank. My position placed me diagonally across from Xiao Jingming, seated at the first seat in the lower right corner. Though Xiao Jingming held the exalted title of crown prince, his birth mother, Empress Huida, had passed away early. The emperor favored the third prince, born to the imperial consort, and Xiao Jingming's position as crown prince was merely a matter of protocol. His throne was far from secure. In my previous life, this very circumstance had filled me with pity for him. But now, the mere sight of him made me sick. How could such a man be worthy of the crown prince's title? Noticing my gaze, his almond-shaped eyes lifted, seemingly brimming with affection. Xiao Jingming's features were among the most striking in the great Yong dynasty. His brows and eyes were clear and open, his face ethereal, yet his entire demeanor radiated unparalleled nobility. If he represented the pinnacle of beauty, then the other person. I turned my head, searching the crowd, and thus failed to notice Xiao Jingming's face darken as he saw me look away. Within moments, I spotted him in an inconspicuous corner. The towering man sat upright, his jet-black robes seeming to radiate the cold gleam of weaponry, half his face concealed by a black gold mask. His appearance under the candlelight sent a chill down one's spine. He was Pei Tuo, the Marquis of Huayin, known as the Living Yama, the man Yi Jiqing was destined to marry in my past life. The Marquis of Huayin's household had once been a prominent clan, but they had sided with the wrong faction when the current emperor seized the throne. Later, to preserve their bloodline, the former Marquis of Huayin led his entire household of over 100 to commit suicide, sparing only Pei Tuo. If my memory serves, Yi Jiqing's betrothal to Pei Tuo was also orchestrated by the crown prince. However, after my bridal sedan fell off a cliff and I died in my previous life, Pei Tuo gained the reputation of being a husband who brought misfortune to his wives. It seemed he never remarried. With these thoughts weighing on my mind, I repeatedly replayed the details of my past life in my head. I recall that in my previous life, Xiao Jingming emerged victorious in the power struggle primarily because Pei Tuo brought a quarter of his troops to aid him. Originally neutral, Pei Tuo chose sides only after Yi Jiqing sought him out at his camp at a critical moment. At the time, he heard reports that the crown prince's consort sought an audience, but he did not go out to meet her, merely observing from afar. To this day, I still cannot fathom what bargain they struck, nor how Yi Jiqing could have persuaded this man to willingly mobilize 200,000 troops in his aid. Now, just as in my past life, Xiao Jingming knelt before the throne, his voice raised in earnest supplication to marry the daughter of the Shen family. The golden-crowned, jade-adorned crown prince, that peerlessly radiant heir to the throne, now knelt before the imperial presence to win his beloved. How many gazed upon the scene with envy? How many burned with jealousy? Yet I was no longer the same as in my past life. Witnessing this spectacle, I nearly shed tears. Just as His Majesty inquired of my consent, I stepped forward, one step at a time, toward the imperial throne. My hands, concealed beneath my sleeves, grew slightly damp. An indescribable tension spread through my entire body. causing me to tremble ever so slightly. Drawing a deep breath, I prostrated myself and declared in a clear voice, "Your humble servant." Mingxi. Thanks the emperor and crown prince for their kindness. Yet my heart already belongs to another. Therefore, I cannot consent. As the words fell, Xiao Jingming, kneeling beside me, lost his usual radiant composure. His eyes held only utter bewilderment. I too was gambling on the emperor's lack of affection for the crown prince. Had the third prince sought my hand today, given his majesty's evident favor toward him, I would never have dared refuse the match in public. Yet whether the crown prince marries his beloved holds no significance to the emperor. Compared to that, he clearly prefers watching the spectacle unfold. True to form, his majesty inquired with a smile, since that is the case, fate cannot be forced where there is no mutual bond. Which noble young man has captured your heart? Little one? Why not tell me? I shall decide for you. Xiao Jingming faltered, "Father." I cut him off, replying, "It is Pei Tuo. This humble daughter admires Pei Tuo, the Marquis of Huayin." A long silence followed. The vast hall fell completely silent. I understood why. Partly because of my boldness, but mostly because the man in question was Pei Tuo. Rumors claimed he was hideously ugly, which was why he always wore a mask. Coupled with the fact that his entire family had been wiped out and he himself bore the weight of bloodshed, the noble ladies of the capital avoided him like the plague. After a moment, the emperor on the high dais finally found his voice. Perhaps we should ask Minister Pei himself?" A steady shuffle of footsteps reached my ears, followed by a figure kneeling to my left rear. The man's voice was deep and steady, yet his words were far from pleasant. "This humble servant possesses coarse features unworthy of a noble match. I dare not presume to seek union with such exalted grace." I had assumed that since he had aided Yi Jiqing in my previous life, he must retain some memory of my face. Little did I know I had miscalculated. Fortunately, my true purpose here was never to secure his consent. The farce ended with Pei Tuo's cold, firm refusal. Within half a day, the whole capital would surely be abuzz with news of our encounter. As we passed each other, I murmured an apology in my heart. "Sorry, you might be stuck with me for a while longer." The man's figure paused ever so slightly as he brushed past me, then strode straight to his seat. After the palace banquet ended, just as I was about to leave, Xiao Jingming blocked my path. His expression remained composed, his tone tinged with resignation. "Wan, your playful nature remains as strong as ever. What affection for Pei Tuo? Do I not know you? With your fastidiousness, even in food, choosing only what looks appealing, how could you possibly fancy someone so repulsive?" He sighed, clearly dismissing Pei Tuo as insignificant, as if the man posed no threat whatsoever. You, what have I done to anger you? Had you not caused this scene today, our wedding date would have been set. Haven't you always wanted to be my crown princess? With this outburst of yours, our wedding date will be delayed once more. I took a step back, my tone distant and cold. Ugliness in appearance may be seen, but ugliness in the heart cannot be heard. General Pei protects our homeland with loyalty and courage. What fear is there in such a man over the ugliness of his face? Xiao Jingming, I am not causing trouble, nor am I playing games. Don't you understand? This lifetime, I will never be your crown princess. As a meticulously groomed heir to the throne, Xiao Jingming had always maintained measured composure, rarely losing his temper. Yet upon hearing my words, his expression darkened completely. His features grew taut, his eyes icy. "Mingxi, I choose to pretend I never heard that. You wish to marry another? This lifetime? Don't even dream of it." Naturally, I didn't believe his fury stemmed from my confession of affection for another. Rather, My refusal to become crown princess had disrupted their plans. Just then, an attendant reported that Miss Yi, the imperial cousin, had angered the imperial consort and was being punished by kneeling outside the palace hall. I raised an eyebrow and asked Xiao Jingming, "Aren't you going to see her?" Xiao Jingming was too anxious. From the moment he heard the name Yi Jiqing, his entire expression was etched with worry. Because of this, he didn't grasp why I'd asked him to check on my cousin, someone from my Yi family who had no connection to him whatsoever. Under the shade of green trees lining the path, I watched his hurried retreating figure, my gaze gradually turning icy. The most furious over my public rejection of the crown prince's marriage proposal were undoubtedly that father and daughter. My father, usually so refined and gentle, rolled up his sleeves, his finger nearly poking my nose. "Mingxi, do you know what you've done? That is the crown prince. You dared reject the crown prince? You are simply... Go immediately and apologize to the crown prince. Tell him you were momentarily confused." I lifted my head calmly to meet his gaze. "Father, did you not hear what I said in the palace hall today? I said that the one I love is the Marquis of Huayin. Are you now forcing your daughter to marry someone she does not love? Is it for power? Or do you have other motives?" Nonsense. Absurd. How could the Marquis of Huayin be a suitable match? Yi Jiqing, who had been punished with kneeling today, rubbed her knees and stubbornly sat in the hall, refusing to return to her room. She was even more anxious than Ming Qingyin. "Wan, the crown prince truly loves you. If there's any misunderstanding between you two, just speak up. It's better than missing out on a good match." I watched their desperate antics with cold eyes. Speaking slowly and deliberately, only a match I approve of is a good match. Since I do not approve of the crown prince, how can there be any talk of missing a good match? Seeing Yi Jiqing, Ming Qingyin's face flushed with heartache, making me want to vomit. You know full well Qinger is unfamiliar with court etiquette. Why didn't you guide her? Now she's needlessly offended the imperial consort. "Uncle, it's not Wan's fault. It's my own shortcoming." I scoffed coldly, knowing your own shortcomings isn't foolishness. But not understanding court etiquette? Why didn't you stay home? A sparrow from the muddy fields insists on perching on branches not meant for it. When it falls to its death, who can blame it? Ming Qingyin stared at me for the first time, her eyes wide. "Mingxi, when did you become so cruel?" Cruel? No. What follows will show you what true cruelty truly is. After rejecting the crown prince's marriage proposal, I became a hot potato in the capital. No respectable family dared to come courting. Fearing my mother's heartbreak, I prepared words to comfort her. Yet she took it in stride, merely smiling softly. "My child is a treasure of this world. A worthy man will come for her." I feigned concern, but what if I never marry in this lifetime? At that moment, the flowering quince petals fell softly, tracing an irresistibly captivating scene behind her. She gazed at me for a long time, her fingers tracing my face inch by inch, before saying, "My sheer, just be happy and content in this life." At that moment, I still couldn't understand the deep sorrow in her eyes, nor where it came from. The next day, Mother and I arrived early at Fahua Temple. She had long been determined to obtain a protective amulet for me, to banish the nightmares haunting my sleep. The mountain temple had just weathered a downpour. Raindrops rolled off branches onto grass blades, leaving the bluestone floor muddy. After my rebirth, I developed a deep reverence for the divine beings of this world. I knelt devoutly before the Buddha, grateful for the countless deities who had granted me a new life. My mother had a habit of copying sutras in temples. Seeing her enter the inner chamber, I decided to wander about. No sooner had I stepped out of the main hall than I collided head-on with someone. The man remained clad in that bottomless black robe, his black gold mask appearing less eerie in daylight than it did at night. Spotting me, He pursed his lips and took a step back, then bowed his head and shifted sideways, as if deliberately making way for me. Yet that posture, I reflected, seemed unnecessarily humble. Such a submissive demeanor of a subordinate, I'd seen it in servants, in grooms, but never before in a marquis. I took a step forward, then abruptly turned. General Pei? Pei Tuo's advancing stride halted. He turned his head slightly, revealing only the unmasked side of his face as he looked at me. His sharply defined jaw was taut, and his noble nose was half concealed by the mask, radiating an aura of grim intensity. I took 2 more steps closer, yet keenly sensed fear? Perhaps I was imagining things, but I halted nonetheless, asking politely, "Has General Pei also come to pay respects to the Buddha?" He turned, keeping an arm's length between us, and looked down at me with slightly lowered eyes. "The eternal lamp of the Marquis of Huayin is enshrined at Fahua Temple. Today is the first day of the month." I nodded. For a moment, the wind around us seemed to freeze. Just as I was about to take my leave, the man before me suddenly spoke. His voice was low and restrained, as if he'd rolled those words around in his throat for lifetimes before finally daring to ask. He asked, "Miss Ming, that day in the hall, when you said you were fond of me, was that true or false?" I lifted my gaze to meet his eyes, only then realizing how strikingly beautiful they were, as if every galaxy had been crushed and scattered across his irises, layering them with light and expectation. I had used him from the start. At this moment, I could have easily lied and said it was true. But facing such eyes, I found no courage to lie. A man steeped in slaughter and bloodshed, one who had rolled through mountains of corpses and seas of blood, yet his gaze held such pure innocence. My mouth opened, and in a hoarse voice I said, "General Pei, I used you as a shield to refuse the marriage proposal. I've tarnished your reputation." Pei Tuo seemed to have anticipated my words, showing no reaction. Instead, he asked a baffling question. "Then you never truly desired the crown prince either?" Confused, I still shook my head swiftly. "Of course not. I'll never like him in this lifetime, or any lifetime to come." I saw the corner of his mouth twitch upward, only for his thin lips to straighten again the next instant, so swiftly it felt like a hallucination. I shook my head inwardly, lost in thought. My mind wandered momentarily, and as I nearly stumbled down the steps, Pei Tuo swiftly grabbed my sleeve. "Careful. Closer now." The faint, lingering scent of dark wood clung to him. Then, a voice laced with anger shattered the mountain temple's silence. "In broad daylight, you're pulling and tugging with a man? Have you no shame left? Mingxi?" It was Crown Prince Xiao Jingming, accompanied by Yi Jiqing. He strode up the steps, yanking me by the arm with such force it nearly sent me tumbling. Pei Tuo's gaze fixed intently on our clasped hands. Slowly lifting his eyes, he fixed Xiao Jingming with a piercing stare, gritting his teeth to maintain his noble composure. Xiao Jingming offered Pei Tuo a forced smile. Our Wanwan nearly made a jest in the palace hall that day. Could it be that General Pei took it seriously? "We grew up together. You should know that Wanwan was destined to be my crown princess from childhood." He turned back to me, his eyes flashing a warning, "Whether in this life, the next, or the one after that, you will only ever be mine. You can only love me and marry me. If you dare to love another, I will kill them all." Nearby, Yi Jiqing's face drained of color as she heard these words. I suddenly burst into laughter. Listen to this, someone unaware might think he's so deeply devoted to me, unable to let go. Just as I was about to retort, Pei Tuo swiftly raised his hand, knocking Xiao Jingming's wrist away and pulling me to safety, ignoring Xiao Jingming's darkening expression. He spoke with solemn sincerity. "If the crown prince wishes to kill me, he may try." Xiao Jingming dared not lay a finger on him, Not only was his power struggle with the third prince precarious enough that he couldn't afford any missteps. Moreover, the power and influence Pei Tuo commanded meant no one dared touch him now. His words were a genuine provocation. After all, the crown prince could cease to be crown prince. But Pei Tuo would always be Pei Tuo. I had once suspected whether Pei Tuo had known the truth in the previous life. Whether he had known Yi Jiqing. Otherwise, why would he have lent her 20,000 troops? But now it seems I overthought it. That day at the temple, Xiao Jingming stormed off in a rage, leaving Yi Jiqing behind alone. Having reached this point in this life without me as his stepping stone, I wanted to see how Yi Jiqing would manage to marry Xiao Jingming. If Xiao Jingming could marry her openly and honestly, I might even hold him in higher regard. But clearly, he was unwilling. I had foolishly believed their love was deep and profound. It turns out, without power and privilege to prop it up, this affection was utterly fragile. The person I sent to monitor that concubine's residence brought news. Yi Jiqing was nearly driven mad with anxiety. The position of crown princess slipping through her fingers, how could she not be frantic? Yet her mother, the mistress, proved remarkably composed. After much deliberation, she devised a plan. Poison? I asked, fingering the letter, my voice flat. Mei Xiang lowered her head. Yes. That's what they agreed upon. She no longer cowered like before, stuttering every other word. I smiled, brushing the snowflakes from her shoulder. I keep asking you to do things like this. Aren't you afraid? Mei Xiang lifted her head, her eyes bright and full of trust. Miss, I'm not afraid. I wouldn't even flinch at dying for you. I shook my head. You won't have to. This time, we'll both live 100 years. And mother, my maternal family, I want every one of you to live 100 years in this lifetime. Tossing the letter into the furnace, I brushed away non-existent dust. Father and his mistress, that unsightly mess, must be cleared away. The imperial consort's birthday banquet was held at Yongle Palace, gathering nearly every high-ranking official in the capital. On such a day, causing a scandal would be more than just a loss of face. Amidst the clinking of cups and the clatter of dishes, Yi Jiqing beside me finally made her move. Wan, I was wrong to involve you in that scolding from my uncle last time. Let me make it up to you with a cup of wine. Will you forgive me? I closed my eyes, watching as she poured 2 cups. Then I raised my own cup, lips curved in a smile. Waiting. All right. I pinched the cup between 2 fingers, deliberately clinking it against hers. As her eyes nearly popped out of her head, I downed the drink. To show sincerity, she immediately drained her own cup. Seeing this, I curved my lips into a smile. Before half an incense stick had burned, she began testing my resolve. To ensure my escape later, I deliberately made a scene, apologizing to the imperial consort that I felt unwell and needed to rest for a while. Yi Jiqing would soon discover how much pleasure the union powder I had brought her from the western regions would bring her. And that person I had carefully arranged for her would surely be unforgettable for the rest of her life. After returning from the inner courtyard, I made my rounds, greeting and conversing with each person present. Glancing up at the sun, I knew the time had come. The next moment, a palace attendant rushed in with alarming news. The imperial consort's face darkened, yet beneath that frown lay a hint of secret delight. After all, I had just presented her with a most generous gift. Soon, a clamorous crowd gathered behind the courtyard. A noble lady who had arrived earlier ventured a curious glance before scrambling back in panic. Good heavens! What utter shamelessness! In broad daylight. Who on earth is this girl? Isn't that the cousin of the Inspector Ming? How utterly brazen! Mingling with men like this. Yi Jiqing, half-conscious, instantly grasped her predicament. Pale as a ghost, she grabbed the quilt to cover herself. her voice shrill with terror. Just then, Xiao Jingming arrived. His face turned ashen at the sight before him. The moment Yi Jiqing saw him, she scrambled to crawl toward him. She was clever enough not to reveal her illicit affair with the crown prince. Instead, she shook her head at him with a pitiful look. She spotted me in the crowd, wearing a faint smile, and instantly understood. Ming Shi, I always treated you like my own sister. Why would you do this to me? Her eyes, like pools of misty water, brimmed with tears threatening to spill. Like a flower battered by wind and rain, she looked fragile and helpless as she made her accusation. Her words were vague and ambiguous, leaving room for wild speculation and attempts to point the finger at me. Though, admittedly, it was my doing. I pinched my arm hard, forcing 2 tears to fall, and choked out, "Cousin Yi, our Ming family has never treated you poorly. You did this yourself. Yet when caught, how dare you sling mud at me?" Everyone saw just now, I was merely resting briefly due to illness before arriving at the hall. Moreover, my mother personally taught you and me that a woman must uphold her dignity and self-respect. If you truly loved Prince Nan, why didn't you speak to my father sooner? He cherishes you so deeply. Yet you secretly consorted with him without a matchmaker. I was nearly scared to death just now, my limbs went numb. Only now am I regaining my senses. By placing the Ming family's traditions first, no one will dare use Yi Jiqing's affair to question our family's upbringing. Voices in the crowd echoed in agreement. Indeed, this adopted cousin's daughter commits such scandalous acts outside the family, yet dares to drag our own daughter into disgrace? What kind of justice is this? Truly, no matter how you raise a partridge, it will never become a phoenix. What a waste of Lady Ming's efforts. What astonished me was that Xiao Jingming simply swept his sleeves and left, utterly unconcerned with Yi Jiqing's fate. Meanwhile, the obese southern prince on the bed seemed quite satisfied with Yi Jiqing. Pulling up his trousers, he declared smugly, "Well, so I slept with a woman. Prepare yourself, in a few days, I'll make you my 13th concubine." At these words, Yi Jiqing let out a wail and fainted. I knelt slowly and bowed to the imperial consort, saying, "Your Highness, on your birthday today, I have forced you to witness this sordid affair. I beg your forgiveness." The imperial consort waved her handkerchief as if the air were foul, then rolled her eyes lazily at Yi Jiqing on the floor. "Enough. Carry her away. She's bad luck." The southern prince, though loyal to the crown prince, was a complete fool. He likely didn't realize how much ammunition he just handed the imperial consort with today's actions. By the time Yi Jiqing was carried back to her residence, the news had already spread throughout the capital. The moment I stepped through the gate, a shadow fell across my path. Before I could make out the figure, a heavy slap struck my face, its sharp crack echoing through the brightly lit courtyard. My head jerked to the side from the force, and the metallic taste of blood instantly filled my mouth. Mei Xiang, my maid, cried out louder than I'd ever heard her before. "Master, why are you hitting the young mistress?" I turned to find Ming Qingyin glaring at me with eyes red with rage. "You did this, didn't you? You did this." I took the handkerchief, spat out a mouthful of blood, and resisted the urge to strike back, my expression icy. I looked at him. What good deed is father speaking of? He pointed at me, his fingers itching to punch holes in my face. "Qing'er's purity was defiled, it was you. You're so vile. So utterly vile." I should have been disappointed long ago. Yet I couldn't help but ask, where's the evidence? What proof do you have it was me? Without evidence, why would you believe a single word? Beat me without a second thought? Who is your daughter here? Do you even know? Forget it. I walked to the center of the main hall and ordered, "Go fetch the lady." I looked up at him, a sneer curling my lips. Forget it? Ming Qingyin. Do you think I ever wanted to be your daughter? A child addressing an elder by name is the height of disrespect. Ming Qingyin's face was frozen in disbelief. As if saying, have you lost your mind? No. If I were mad, I would have slain my own father by now. It is precisely because I am not mad that you still live. My father. The wind rocked the lantern, casting flickering light across my face. I calmly continued my orders. Please bring Lady Shang. And while you're at it, bring the grand gift I sent to father. Before long, my mother arrived with Yi Jiqing. Judging by the situation, she must have been comforting Yi Jiqing earlier. I shook my head and sighed. Tonight. I feared I would shatter her decade-long dream. Her gaze darkened upon seeing my swollen face. Who struck you? She demanded. I answered truthfully. Father believed I framed Yi Jiqing. He struck me the moment he entered. Her hand gently touched my bruise, her eyes brimming with heartache. This was enough. She had loved Ming Qingyin for 20 years, never once raising her voice against him. What else could she do? Yet the next moment, I watched her stride to Ming Qingyin, lifting her chin to demand, You struck my daughter? Ming Qingyin, expecting her sympathy, raised his hand to accuse. She's unfilial, unrighteous. Don't I have the right to strike her? Smack! The room fell silent. The gentle, delicate Lady Wen, who had never raised her voice, had summoned every ounce of strength to deliver a blow that sent her husband reeling. You're mad. Ming Qingyin stared at her as if she were a ghost, his face burning with humiliation. Lady Wen stood tall, her expression icy. No one touches my daughter, not even you. Try it again, and see what happens. Seeing this, I signaled to the guards in the courtyard and immediately stood beside her, fearing Ming Qingyin might lose control and attack her. Just then, the grand gift I had sent to father and daughter was carried in. A woman and a boy of 7 or 8 were brought in, bound hand and foot, their mouths stuffed with cotton cloth. Upon seeing them, Yi Jiqing cried out, Mother? Ming Qingyin's body jerked violently. He whipped his head around, instantly freezing stiff in place. My mother clutched my hand tightly and demanded, Didn't you say she had no parents? This question was directed at Ming Qingyin, accusing him of lying. Alas! Ming Qingyin dared not admit it. Once acknowledged, his reputation and power would be swept away. I raised my hand in a gesture. I thought you recognized her. Father? Since you don't, I'll show no mercy. This mother and son stole my jewelry. According to the laws of this dynasty, those who steal over 100 taels of silver shall have their hands severed. Attendants, cut off their hands. The sharp blades glinted coldly. Amidst the icy glare, Yi Jiqing finally cried out to Ming Qingyin, Father, save mother and my younger brother. Father? A deep, aged voice echoed immediately after. What a father indeed! I looked over in surprise. Grandfather? First cousin? Second cousin? Ming Qingyin collapsed to the ground, crawling to my mother's feet and clutching her skirt hem. Susu. I love only you. No one else. No one else. Believe me, it was an accident. I never intended to bring her in. In this lifetime, you are the only one I recognize. I stared at my empty palm. Mother's shoulders shook violently. The pain must be unbearable. Betrayed by the one she loved most. Kept in the dark for decades. What she thought would be a lifelong commitment until death turned out to be nothing but a heart poured into flowing water and fallen blossoms. The woman on the floor began to laugh. A shrill, wretched laugh. Ming Qingyin, why are you begging her? You and I were childhood sweethearts, promised to each other for life. If not for her, why would I have been reduced to a lowly concubine? What wrong have I done? My mother rose calmly. walking to her father, my maternal grandfather, and leaned against him like a child who never grew up. "Father, your daughter has erred. I beg your permission to divorce Ming Qingyin." Her grandfather, tears welling in his eyes, stroked her hair and nodded. "Very well. Divorce. Let it be done." That night was truly unrestrained and intense. When mother spoke of the divorce, Ming Qingyin knelt on the ground, hunched over, repeatedly begging for forgiveness, refusing to accept the separation. He wept pitifully, as if abandoned by his deepest love, consumed by unbearable grief. Alas! That night, mother never once looked back. After that night, Yi Jiqing returned to the mansion Ming Qingyin had purchased for them, only for the southern prince to forcibly abduct her in a palanquin. Her mother screamed like a madwoman, "My daughter is to marry the crown prince. My daughter is to marry the crown prince." Later, I heard that the concubine, for obstructing the wedding palanquin, was beaten by the southern prince's men. I merely took the opportunity to replace her healing ointment with a flesh-rotting powder. Whether she survives the coming days is now up to fate. After my mother's divorce, our family name changed from Ming to Lian, and I became Lian Shi instead of Ming Shi. My maternal family returned from the frontier to attend the annual New Year's Eve banquet at the palace. That night, I had merely timed my actions to coincide with their arrival. Third cousin was stationed at the frontier this year and did not return. Gazing at my gray-haired maternal grandfather, I pressed close to him, remembering my past life. One day he fought enemies on the battlefield, the next, an imperial edict branded him a rebel. His entire clan was annihilated at the river frontier. "Grandfather, do you think I went too far that day? Mother must be heartbroken." He sighed. "Your mother is kind-hearted. I blame myself for shielding her too well, leaving her unaware of the treacherous nature of people. You, however, are different. Even without your grandfather, you won't be bullied." Yet in my past life, wasn't I also shielded too well, unable to see through the deceit hidden beneath the belly? What astonished me was that Xiao Jingming simply let Yi Jiqing be forcibly married off to the southern prince. After all, in my past life, he had schemed for nearly a decade just to marry her. But it was only natural he had no heart for such matters now, because the traps I had set for him were about to surface, one by one, and it was time for them to sink deep into his flesh. In my past life, Xiao Jingming paid a terrible price to bring down the third prince. For his target wasn't merely the prince, it was the emperor himself. His position as crown prince had always been precarious. The slightest misstep would see the emperor immediately dethrone him and appoint another. The emperor's favoritism toward the third prince was unparalleled. This time around, all I need to do is fan the flames a little more, make Xiao Jingming's throne wobble just a bit harder. I refuse to believe he won't rebel. Meanwhile, through persuasion, Ming Qingyin has fully aligned himself with the crown prince's faction. Perfect. Taking out the whole nest at once saves trouble. This spring would witness two major events, the imperial examination scandal and the fire at the Western Hills Imperial Villa. In my previous life, the top scholar of the spring examinations was impersonated and murdered. The mastermind behind the impersonation was none other than the Duke of In, a member of the Crown Prince's faction. When the third prince's faction investigated the case, they uncovered only half the clues before the trail was abruptly severed, and the matter was subsequently swept under the rug. The construction of the Western Hills Imperial Villa, overseen by the third prince, was a project highly valued by the current emperor. Yet, inexplicably, it caught fire just 1 year after construction began. The sudden conflagration was seen as an ominous sign, indirectly implicating the third prince. In just 1 short year, these two events alone propelled Xiao Jingming rapidly closer to the center of power. Fuan Tea House stood at the southwest corner of Yongding Street, where the clamor of street vendors filled the air. The heavy curtain of a private room on the second floor was drawn back, letting in a gust of cold wind. The man who entered remained clad entirely in black. He seemed unfazed by the cold, wearing only a single layer of thin clothing even in this bitter winter. "Here. Is the matter settled?" I looked at the man standing at a distance. Even after all this time, he still dared not venture too close to me. How remarkable. I've only met him a few times, yet he willingly obeys my commands. Pei Tuo's gaze fell on my teapot. His first words were, "The water's gone cold. Don't drink it. Tomorrow, I'll have someone escort him to strike the drum of public complaints. My men will ensure he reaches the imperial court alive." That man was the mountain scholar who had been impersonated. Pei Tuo's men had rescued him first. I touched the teapot. The water wasn't cold, just no longer hot. Suddenly remembering something, I looked at him and laughed aloud, meeting his puzzled gaze. I teased. "The capital buzzes with rumors that I love you beyond reach. The storybooks paint me as the lovesick fool and you as the heartless suitor. Pei Tuo, am I truly so unworthy of you?" His hand at his side tightened slightly. He pressed his lips together and said, "I'll handle it. You needn't worry." I smiled silently. How could anyone be loyal like a dog? That was praise, not insult. When the imperial examinations concluded, the crown prince's faction suffered a severe setback. Though Xiao Jingming had maneuvered to absolve himself of blame, in the emperor's eyes, he remained tainted. It wasn't until the truth about the Western Hills imperial villa fire emerged that the emperor's intent to depose the crown prince became glaringly obvious, leaving the crown prince's faction in a state of constant fear. Finally, on a rainy night, the anxious Xiao Jingming, crown prince of the Great Yong dynasty, raised the banner of rebellion. The rebel army pressed directly toward the heart of the palace, penetrating the very center of the emperor's power. Just as the blade was about to pierce the emperor's heart, the sound of hooves echoed. The Marquis of Huayin and the second prince led reinforcements straight into the palace city. They captured the rebels in one fell swoop, safeguarding the emperor's person. Yes, not the third prince, but the second prince. The third prince possessed courage but lacked strategy. His temperament impulsive. The crown prince was accomplished in both civil and military affairs. Yet his thoughts were venomous. Neither was fit to rule the Great Yong in the future. In my past life, I had already seen the second prince's character. He possessed the heart of a ruler, the mind of an emperor, and the integrity of a man. It was a pity that in his previous life, isolated and without support, he perished in the struggle between the two princes. In this life, I saw no harm in lending him a helping hand. The crown prince's coup failed, and he was stripped of his title and demoted to commoner status. His entire faction was sentenced to execution by decapitation at the Meridian Gate, including Ming Qingyin and his son. On the day of his execution, I stood upon the high platform, gazing from afar. A burly executioner clad in a crimson vest raised his brutal blade. With a sharp crack, two heads, one large, one small, rolled onto the ground. Pei Tuo, do you think I'm heartless? I asked softly. He knew I had sent my own father to the executioner's block. After a long silence, a voice finally came from behind me. I only recognize the you I know. Those words held meaning, no matter what kind of monster I became. If he saw me as a god, I was a god. If he saw me as a demon, I was a demon. Self-centered enough, idealistic enough, unshaken by external circumstances. I heard Yi Jiqing has gone mad, muttering day and night that she is the empress. I went to see her once. She was abandoned by Prince Nan in the woodshed, neglected by all. The moment our eyes met, I knew she remembered that past life where she stood on clouds while I wallowed in mud. Mingxi? Mingxi, why didn't you die? Are you a vengeful spirit come to haunt me? Let me tell you, I'm not afraid. Don't even dream of it in this lifetime. That master told me, as long as I trample your ashes beneath my feet each day, you'll remain a mere wisp of a ghost for all eternity. I'm not afraid of you. But why? Where is the crown prince? My crown prince? I am the empress. The empress who sets the standard for all women in the realm. I seized her jaw, forcing her to look up at me. My lips parted. This wisp of a spirit has come to seek vengeance. Are you afraid? Ah. She clutched her head and fled to the corner. Then I thrust out a foot, stomping viciously into the mud. Crush you! Crush you! I'll trample your ashes to dust. Rotten and foul. You'll never find peace. Not in this life or the next. Before leaving, I glanced back at Yi Jiqing one last time. This half-mad, half-waking state suits her best. Earlier, I'd leaned close and whispered something in her ear. Your mother's ashes? I had them mixed into the soil and spread along the main road at the South City Gate. If you have time, you can go trample them. As for the crown prince, a crown prince demoted to commoner? Plenty wish him dead. I merely kindly sent him to a safe place, where men favor his handsome, beautiful face. Time slipped away in the blink of an eye, and I lost count of how many springs had faded, how many summers and autumns had stretched on. The days since my past life felt like several lifetimes had passed. When winter came again, the warm chamber felt like spring had granted an extra blessing, its warmth soothing the heart. My eldest cousin's wife, virtuous and refined, held up a pattern for me to see. Wan. I think this design would be perfect for your springtime garments. I propped my chin on my hand, smiling at her. Sister-in-law, you've been picking out patterns for my spring dress for days now. At this rate, I'll be wearing it into next spring. Mother sat beside us, her face like distant mountains and flowing water, bathed in sunlight. She watched us with a smile. Shaner has such good taste. Every pattern she picks is beautiful. I buried my face in her embrace, clinging to her without a care for others, calling her mother over and over. Everyone received their just deserts. All obstacles and hardships would pass. My mother would live 100 years, surrounded by children and grandchildren, her hair turning white. She tapped my nose gently. That general pay, if you think he's decent. Perhaps you could give it a try? Though whether you marry or not, I'll always support your choice. Still, I can't help but worry. If there's someone who truly loves and protects you, even when I'm not by your side, I'll feel at ease. What are you saying? I frowned, pouting. We'll see about that. After all, he turned me down time and again. Later, I came to understand Pei Tuo's awkward little worries. He'd somehow heard that I detested ugly things and people, fearing I'd despise him for the scar on his face. I'd lifted his mask once, nothing terrifying beneath it. Just a scar stretching from the corner of his eye down to his cheek. But his features were inherently handsome, that scar only added a rugged charm. Still, I wouldn't tell him any of this. For now, I'd just let it be. Spring seemed to be approaching. Soon, the world would be warm and cozy again. Things that are too beautiful always feel too unreal. And what feels too unreal, like a dream, seems destined to shatter. My mother fell ill without warning. Her body deteriorated rapidly, beyond any remedy. I clutched the doctor's arm, repeating frantically, how could this be? She was perfectly healthy. I took such good care of her. Since I returned, she never fell ill again. Doctor, please examine her again. You must have misdiagnosed her. The doctor sighed. Miss, you should prepare for her final arrangements. What final arrangements? What useless doctor? If one fails, find another. Every physician in the city came, even the imperial physicians from the palace. They told me, They all told me to compose myself. Impossible. My mother was meant to live 100 years. To see her children and grandchildren grow. To grow old with us. I pressed my hand against hers. Forcing a smile, Mother. It's okay. A new doctor is coming soon. Everything will be fine. Don't be afraid. Okay? Mother's gaze swept over my face again and again, as if etching my features into her memory. She raised her hand, tracing my eyebrows, my nose. A gentle smile played at her lips, tears welling in her eyes. Through her tears, she smiled and told me, Mother is so happy to see you back. All these years, Mother never got to ask you, my child. Does it still hurt? She asked. She was asking if it still hurt when I fell off the cliff, breaking every bone in my body, asking if it still hurt when the fire burned me to ashes. My hand barely covered hers. I shook my head. It doesn't hurt. Not at all. It doesn't hurt anymore. Mother. I don't hurt. With her last ounce of strength, she looked at me one final time. My mother never lived to be 100. Never saw her children and grandchildren fill her home. Never grew old with white hair. In this world, I am the only one left. Outside, the sun was blinding. Step by step, I walked out the door. But as I crossed the threshold, I nearly stumbled and fell. Mei Xiang stepped forward from behind to steady me. I gripped the doorframe with one hand and clutched Mei Xiang's wrist tightly with the other. 2 streams of tears flowed down my cheeks. Without warning. Mei Xiang! I cried out. No. I sobbed until I could barely breathe. Never was there divine favor. Never the Buddha's protection. From beginning to end, the only one who shielded me. The only one. Both times I survived. It was by trading her life for mine. Tears streaming down my face. I turned to look at the white-shrouded memorial hall behind me. The white spirit banners swayed in the wind, so much like her hands that once caressed mine. It turns out fate never bestows gifts without reason. The end.